Good to have you back on Newsday. A 2021 United Nations Women report shows that 48% of Nigerian women have experienced at least one form of violence. UN data on reported incidents of gender-based violence cases in Nigeria, based on preliminary information from 24 states, shows that in March, total number of gender-based violence incidents reported were 346, while in the first part of April, incidents reports spiked to 794, depicting a 56% increase in just 2 weeks of lockdown in 2020. Now, the case in Lagos State is not any different, as the State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Onibanjo, said 10,007 reported cases of domestic violence, including sexual abuse perpetrated against adults and children between May 2019 and August 26, 2021. Now, joining me to speak on the spate of sexual gender-based violence is a lawyer and public administrator, Lola Vivour Adeniyi. She currently serves as the pioneer Executive Secretary of the Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Agency. It's good to have you with us,
Thank you so much.
Lola. Yeah. Now, you've spent over 10 years in public service with the Lagos State government. How would you assess, firstly, their own efforts, towards against sexual violence, as it were?
Okay, so in the past 7-8 years, there has been concerted effort on the part of the Lagos State government to ensure coordinated response to incidents of domestic and sexual violence. The institutions that are set up to provide response are available, but we noticed that there was no coordination. This is because, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence require different services.
Yeah.
Medical, legal, psychosocial, they need to be rescued, they need justice. And so there's no one agency or parastatal that can appropriately provide all those services. So what government has done in the past 7-8 years is to ensure coordination amongst the relevant responder agencies and obviously take the center stage because these are issues that pertain to our people.
Yeah, very good. Now, you talked about the lack of concerted, coordination and all of that, but let's take a look at it this way. Do you think the justice system itself, when all of these cases are being reported, do you think it's actually proactive in ensuring enforcement of these incidents of sexual violence, as it were?
Yeah,
specifically for Lagos?
Of course, yes. I speak for Lagos.
Yeah.
So in terms of proactiveness, I think we should lean towards more of prevention because when an issue has occurred, when an abuse has occurred, we go into response. So how do we ensure survivors are able to access all the relevant services that they require? Yeah. And then justice is the end, really. Before you get to justice, there's medical, there's psychosocial, and all of that. But in terms of prevention, I think that's the focus of what we're doing. And prevention can only come when people know. We did a research sometime in 2016, and we found out that there was such a low level of awareness about issues pertaining to sexual and gender-based violence. A lot of people don't even know what domestic and sexual violence is about. Some people don't even know that these are crimes, and crimes committed against the state. Some people feel that, if there's an issue of defilement or rape, it can be settled in the community. It can be settled at the Oba's palace. But that's not the case. In Lagos, these are crimes. Defiling a child is life imprisonment. Abusing a woman or a man who you're married to can be up to 7 years imprisonment. So there's a need to continue creating awareness. And we found that when you create awareness, you can prevent. That's one way of being proactive.
So how do you bridge the gap between the lack of awareness and your intentions to make people aware of their rights?
Yes, so what we started this year, we started town hall meetings and we're going to all the local governments. We've been to 15. We intend to cover the remaining 5. And we're doing door-to-door community engagement. We're being very strategic in our approach. So if we're looking at the children, because children also have a role to play in protecting themselves, we're going to schools. Yeah. If we're trying to get the young people, we're targeting social media. If we're trying to get the 45s and above, we're going to door-to-door community engagement, engaging them in their communities, letting them know that these are support services that exist in their communities, and if they need to escalate, these are numbers, these are places they can go to access help. And I think if you look at the data, we've seen a steady increase of reporting, meaning that people are becoming more aware. about these issues and support services that exist.
But basically, realistically, that's all well and good, but it's easier said than done. And let's talk about the stigma attached to victims of sexual violence themselves, their inability to come out and speak for themselves. Oh, obviously, the other time we talked about them not being aware enough, but even when they are aware, that stigma attached to it, how would people react to me after this violence? So what are you doing to encourage them speaking up?
Yes.
And of course, doing something about it.
It goes back to awareness.
Yeah.
Letting them know that, first of all, it's not their fault. They are not to blame. Letting them know that there are designated places they can go to access help. For instance, what we have in Lagos State, we have designated police stations referred to as family support units.
Okay.
So when you approach any of those police stations, the stereotypical questions that some survivors are asked: why did you go there? Your skirt is too short. What were you expecting? Survivors won't be posed such questions because you have trained personnel at that level. What we've done in Lagos is to integrate and mainstream response to sexual and gender-based violence into the health sector, in the education system. It's being taught now in our schools. It's in the health system. It's in rule of law, access to justice. So we destigmatize issues pertaining to sexual and gender-based violence. And I think we're well on our way in achieving that. We have what we call mandated reporting, where residents of Lagos that see something are encouraged to say something and do something. So we have people actually calling. This person has been abused. This child is experiencing abuse. Lagos State, come and take this child. Come and rescue this man. Come and rescue that woman. And I believe that, with the heightened awareness, everybody realizes that, we shouldn't blame or shame the survivor. Rather, emphasis should be on the perpetrator.
Still talking about the perpetrators now. I'm still going to take you back to the issue of, judiciary and what have you. But does Lagos State actually have relevant laws that protect the victims? I'm not talking about the judiciary per se now, but at least the Lagos State House of Assembly. Are our laws good enough, to protect? Because sometimes you have a scenario whereby cases have been reported, and then you find out that the police, who are supposed to be the enforcers of those laws, at least protect the victims, are siding with the perpetrators. And then you find out so many of such instances on social media and even being reported on the news. So what are you doing to mitigate such effects?
So we're not lacking in terms of laws in Lagos.
We know that.
And
so
even
it's about
in terms of
enforcement
implementation. So for instance, we have the Protection Against Domestic Violence Law, as far back as 2007, that basically seeks to protect survivors of domestic violence, ensuring they are able to access what is called a protection or restraining order. It's not criminal. It's more of protection. This has happened. We want to ensure it doesn't reoccur. And the law says that, proceedings that pertain to domestic violence should be held in camera. In fact, it's an offense if a media house publishes a story of domestic violence. So that's to show that we really, really want to ensure that survivors are relaxed and they can report, knowing fully well that their information, their stories will not be in the news. So that's one level of protection. Recently, just recently, I believe it was this week, the Lagos State House of Assembly passed the Victims and Witness Protection Law, right? And so that law is all-encompassing. It's not limited to just survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. Any victim of crime, any witness of crime, there's certain things, certain machinery that can be deployed when they report and perhaps they are afraid that there might be some repercussions or they need to be relocated. Identities may need to be changed and all of that. So that was just passed in Lagos State. My agency is a statutory agency, which came into force in 2021. And there are different provisions in the law that mandate us to ensure victim safety and ensure that they are protected.
Okay, how have you fared doing that?
Well, I think if you look at our data, I love data. And the data tells you, trends. It tells you the progresses you've made. If you look at the data, if you look at the conviction rates, we are seeing increase in conviction rates, meaning that people are trusting the system more to stay the course. Before now, you have cases where it happens, they beg, they drop out of the criminal justice system. But just in the space of a year, the Lagos State government, under the aegis of the Ministry of Justice, has been able to secure over 80 convictions, ranging from life imprisonment, 65 years, 25 years, depending on the facts.
Very good. Talking about the data and the facts as well, do you think these are being underreported? Because what you're telling us now, not many people are actually aware of that, and the perception that we have is like, okay, fine, from the intro I just read, there's been a spike of these incidents over time and until recently. So what do you think is responsible for that? So
on the sexual and gender-based violence, remains one of the most underreported crimes, not just in Lagos, Nigeria. It's a global phenomenon. You have people that don't want to report because of various issues, sociocultural factors, religion, patriarchy, fear of the unknown. There are no adequate support systems that exist. So there are different factors that contribute to the low level of reporting. And so what we are doing, as we know that there's the research that showed that for every one case that was reported, 7 went unreported. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we ensure that those 7 eventually come over to the 1? So we have 8 cases that are reported. And it goes back to awareness creation.
Very good.
People need to know. And we are not staying back in Alausa or in the office and expecting people to come. We are going to meet them in their areas, in their communities, in their localities, telling them that these are the crimes, these are the relevant laws, these are support services that exist. You can go into the hospital and receive access to free medical care post-trauma,
Okay, I know you must have done that. You must have made that attempt, but how have you been received by the, prospective victims?
How do you mean?
It's like those that you're going to meet.
Yes.
Yes, how have they welcomed you?
Oh, wow.
Regarding that?
We're just coming from Eco Market. We're having a market fiesta, and this is something that is a burning issue. It's not sexual and gender-based violence is not a respecter of age, class, or creed. It can happen to anybody, and it's not something that is so far off. I may ask you, do you know somebody? You may not know somebody directly, but you may know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. So this is a message that is readily received because it's happening to people that we know. People have lost loved ones as a result of domestic violence. Destinies have been truncated because of sexual abuse. So this is a message that is readily received by residents of Lagos.
Very good. Earlier on, you were talking about the issue of restraining order, but I'm just looking at the efficacy of that trend, because in other climes like the US, you could have that in place, and God help you if you break that, you end up in jail. But is that the same scenario here in Nigeria, especially when it comes to maybe a family issue, gender-based violence? Maybe the father raped the daughter, and you're trying to limit his contact with the victim.
If a father rapes his daughter, it's not a restraining order. That's going straight for prosecution and, if possible, conviction.
But at least stopping that from happening again.
Yes, so the restraining order really pertains to people in intimate partner relationships. So like husbands, wives, spouses, father, daughter, father, children, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse. And, the restraining order is an order of court. And if the restraining order is breached, or you refuse to adhere to the court order, then it becomes criminal. And that's when the police can come in and bring the person in for contempt of court. So far this year, we've been able to secure 5 restraining orders. And the efficacy of the restraining order has been quite... we've been successful, let me put it that way, in ensuring that the restraining orders are fully implemented. At the point where the restraining order is given, it's not a criminal court. Because the alleged abuser is there. The alleged abuser is made to know why this restraining order is being given. And in certain instances, the court compels both parties to go for compulsory counseling. And come back to the court to brief them on the progress made. So I think we've actually been quite successful in ensuring that the restraining order is adhered to.
Okay, very good. Now, in instances, let's take a closer look at your agency. Walk us through, what are the processes probably an alleged victim goes through, and, the first point of contact, what does that person need to do upon, getting in touch with you and making a case for him or herself?
Okay, so for domestic violence, but let me do sexual. Sexual is quite straightforward.
All right.
So sexual violence, we are victim-centered. So we are interested in the survivor.
Okay.
Right. So once we hear, people can call us through our toll-free line. They can walk into the office. They can send us a DM. But once we get that report, our first question is, have you been to the hospital? If you've not been to the hospital, we refer you to the hospital, the closest designated hospital that you can receive medical attention.
Okay.
We have, as I said before, we've mainstreamed response to GBV into the health sector.
Okay.
So once a person presents at the designated health facility, we are even notified that they've seen this person, the report is ready, forensic evidence has been collected, whatever, and then we now counsel the survivor on the need to report to the police. Many a times some people are apprehensive. They don't want to go to the police. They don't want to go to court, especially if it happens within the home or in your community. It's the neighbor and all of that.
Which goes back to the stigma issue we're talking about.
So we counsel them on the need to report, letting them know that, first of all, they are not going to pay. Government foots that bill. Letting them know that their identity will not be disclosed. Some people say, I don't want my child's face to be on the news. We tell them, no, the child's rights law is very clear. The rights, the identity of the child is going to be preserved. What are the other issues? Everybody in the community knows. Can I be moved? There's a relocation package that can come in, if necessary. And then we now go ahead with a survival advocate with them to the police station and assist the police in conducting investigations and then kickstart the process of the administration of criminal justice process. Monitor the survivor's progress, let them know, okay, this is when you need to come to court. Some people think that once the case goes to court, they must go every day. No. It's when they are required to give evidence, which may be once or twice, and then that's it. The whole process continues. So sexual violence is quite straightforward. Domestic violence is not that straightforward.
Okay.
Because domestic violence survivors want different things. Some people want you to call their abusive spouse and warn the person. Okay. Some people want you to call the abusive spouse, let the person sign on the undertaking to desist from it. Some people want to go full throttle. They want to go to the abusive spouse to go to jail. Some people want a restraining order. Some people don't want anything. They just want the abusive spouse to leave them alone. So it depends on what the survivor tells us, that we do. And that obviously determines the referral pathway that is activated for them to be able to access.
Very good. Now, when exactly does the work of your agency, end?
It never ends.
Talking about you're still, linked to the justice system in one way or the other.
It never ends. And that's why we don't close cases. Because you may think that even if you've been able to assist the survivor in getting justice, maybe there's a conviction, there might be a need for further psychosocial support that is rendered.
All right.
So it truly never ends.
Very good. Lola Vivour, Adeniyi, Executive Secretary, DSVA, would like to thank you for being a part of the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.